Martise can come around the screen, get in the lane, step back jumper on the way. Got it. Offensive rebound, Alex White. Putback is good.
It's center court with Charlie Ernst on 88.3 WLFC.
Martise needs to pick it up, sends it ahead to Ricardo. Ricardo to Terrence Sullivan, who slams it down with one hand.
Join Coach Ernst and the Oilers on Air team as they take a look back at the week that was, discuss what's happening around the conference, and preview the week ahead.
Back over to Alex White. Alex, kick out to Elijah. Nick will launch it from downtown. Nick Rusatz buries it from three.
Now, let's join men's basketball coach Charlie Ernst and the voice of Oiler basketball, Jason Granger.
Hello and welcome to Center Court with Charlie Ernst. My name's Jason Granger, now joined by the head coach of the Oilers, Coach Charlie Ernst. And Coach, back home off of a road trip and, home for 2 games, and you split. The first game up that we'll talk about is Northwood, is a Thursday night game. Going through some adversity. You lose Austin Gardner. At that point in time, I'm not sure you thought you were going to lose him for the year, but he was out in that game, and he came out and got off to a hot start against the Timberwolves.
We did, and, we got we to be honest, Jason, I know a lot of fans probably think he got hurt against Ferris. You knew he wasn't going to play. No, that's not the case. In fact, just the opposite. We thought he was going to play, and then Wednesday, early in practice, I wouldn't say he re-injured it because he hadn't practiced to that point. He realized there was no way he was going to be able to go when he tried to go. And so, we went from thinking we were going to have him for both games to not having him for any or any going forward. But I thought our guys responded well. We challenged them after we kind of got through the period of, I wouldn't say feeling sorry for ourselves, but obviously every guy on this team's close to Austin and feeling bad for him. But I think our guys used that as motivation, and we got off to a good start. That's what you have to do on your home court.
Well, it was a crazy start to the game, and certainly entertaining for the fans. I think at one point it was 30-7 or 30-9, and I think Martise had 20 of our 30 points, and the head coach for Northwood gets tossed. I mean, it was just a crazy game to start, and like you said, we took advantage of that situation.
We did. I talked with Jeff Reckweg on Friday morning. He called me up and apologized for what had happened. And, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure what happened. And I know a lot of people ask me. And to be honest, I think sometimes fans have a better, especially here in Croy, as close as they are to the court, I think sometimes they have a better idea of what happened than I do, because I have too many other things to worry about than to worry about what the head coach of the other team's saying to the officials. And so whatever happened. Sometimes that fires up the opposing team, and then they can make a run, but it actually did just the opposite. Our guys went on a nice run after that happened. Unfortunately, their run came a little bit later.
Yeah, I was just going to say, give credit to Northwood because their assistant coach has stepped in, which you had to do a number of years ago. I even talked about that on the air. The last time I saw a head coach get fired as Ron down in Bellarmine. I think Charles Warren was our point guard at the time, and they came back and they were able to get that 27-point lead down to 10 in the second half and made it a ball game there for a little bit.
Well, before I talk about the game, I will say that in Ron's defense, his technical was a lot more out of left. His second technical was a lot more out of left field than the one I saw on Thursday night, and probably his was not warranted. But either way, as far as our game on Thursday night against Northwood, I agree. Northwood did something late in the first half that gave them kind of some hope, a lot of hope. And it kind of confused us a little bit. Our guys responded well, and that is, depending on whether or not they scored, that dictated what defense they were in. So it was very uncertain, and it made our guys a little bit uncomfortable. We got confused a little bit and started standing around and thinking about what they were doing instead of just playing and executing. And I think at halftime, we got a better idea of how we wanted to attack both of those, and we just used the same offense. And sometimes that's what you have to do. You just use the same offense against both defenses. And then I think our guys then played more with better flow in the second half. And, fortunately we had a good start to the second half and got a good win.
Yeah, and I like how we kept our poise there in that second half because, like I said, it got a little dicey at the end of the first half. Even the beginning of the second half, it got down to 10 points, and there were a couple possessions there where it was at 10, and they had opportunities to get it under double digits. But then, I thought we did a nice job holding it together. Our second unit did a nice job. But Kat Singleton, especially in the second half, really did well, and very quickly, before the 10-minute mark, it was back out to 17, 18 points.
Yeah, and that was probably, the difference. I think that was kind of their opportunity. They had some energy. They were kind of had to play free. I thought, really what happened, I think, in the first half, Jason, is, things came so easily for our team in the first 8 minutes of the game. You score 30 points, and you think, hey, we're on pace to get 130. And you start shooting quick because Northwood was shooting quick. But like I had to remind our guys, but we're up 25. We shouldn't be shooting quick unless it's a no-brainer by the right guy. And even then, if you go 2 possessions without scoring, then the third possession, you need to run offense. Because if you do, they're going to get desperate on defense, and we're probably going to get something even better than we think we're going to get. But just because they should be shooting quick. They're down 25. We're up 25. We have no reason to be shooting quick. And I think it's easy to fall into that trap when you play with a big lead. And, we did. Fortunately, our guys executed when we needed to and made some shots and got the win.
Let's talk a little bit about shot selection because I think it's something that it went with both games. And this is no knock on Martise. He had 28 points and 38 points. Certainly needed every single one of those both games. But it's at times we can take some quick shots, and especially from three. And I think it's a dual-edged sword at times. If you're making them, it's great. If not, it allows a lot of times long rebounds, the easy transition the other way, and can get the other team going.
Yeah, I think we certainly got to have more balance. I've said that before we even started this season, that balance is the key. It's the key. You got to get to the free throw line. You got to have some inside presence. You got to have, and because then those things come easier. If you don't have those things, then you're a one-dimensional team, and I think we have to be careful that we don't become that. And that's on everyone from me on down. And so, he shot the ball very well, and he's a very good shooter. But some of those shots he's taken are very tough shots, and to expect those to go in all year would be expecting too much. I think one of the things we've always focused on and got to continue to focus on is the number of assists that we get as a team. And really, we did not have a good weekend from an assist standpoint. 30 assists in 2 games, when you score in the 90s, isn't a good number, and that's something that we will continue to work on and make a priority on this team.
Go back to Thursday night. I thought Taryn Sullivan had a good game on Thursday. He had 8 rebounds. This is really how a lot of times I look at Taryn. 19 points on 15 shots. He was also active defensively. He had 2 blocks and 2 steals.
Yeah, Taryn's that kind of a player, and really he plays. To be honest, in a lot of ways, he plays the most important position on our team. And if you go back in time, you look at all the 4s that have made hay in this program, and it goes way back before Josh Bostic, but maybe for our recent fans, it's easier to relate to the guys we've had play that position. But think about this: Josh Bostic, Greg Collig, Jake Hagan, Taryn Sullivan, all of those guys have made a mark in this program, and it's because they play a position. It's kind of like a point forward. We rely on those guys not only to score, but to distribute, to rebound, to score inside, to score outside, set other guys up, help break the press. All of those guys did all those things, and Taryn's the next in a long line of really good 4s that we've had here at Findlay. So my point is, when he plays well, and for him playing well, it's not necessarily scoring 27. It's more like a 19-point, 9 rebound, 6 assists type game. And that's really what we need from our 4s. Now, that's asking a lot, but that's how talented he is. And that's how our program goes, and it's how we use that position. So, and he's been pretty close to those numbers on a couple of occasions.
you get the 91-73 win on Thursday night, and then have to come in Saturday. And I think everyone knew Lake Superior State, an outstanding team, came in with what I believe is probably the best player in the league, and certainly the best point guard in the league, and Kim J. Williams. And he was exactly what I expected. But maybe the difference is they had Marquette and Nicholson that came along. And Marquette had 28 points, and then Nicholson 14 points, 18 rebounds. They were a big problem for us all game long.
Well, we knew all about Williams. To be honest, you as a coach, you make a decision. When you play a team like Lake State, they surround an outstanding, explosive point guard, a guy that requires several bodies to keep him out of the lane, and he plays a lot of minutes, and he's fast. But then you balance that with a team that has three very good shooters around him and a post player that's a highly efficient. They do a good job of running their offense. So as a coach, you have to decide, do we want to close gaps and help keep the ball out of the paint and maybe leave shooters? Or do we want to almost take the attitude, well, Williams is going to get his. Let's make sure other guys don't. And that's really where we went wrong, to be totally honest. I could have lived with Williams getting 40. First of all, he's going to shoot a lot. He's an ultra aggressive player, both driving and shooting, and he's going to take some flyers and make some bad decisions, and he did in that game. But to get 28 from Blake Marquardt, that was really the difference in the game, without doubt. Because if he gets his average, which is 12, and Williams gets 40, we win the game. So I think it was the fact that they had a player that averages 10 or 12 a game go for 28. That was the difference in this game, and I think the biggest thing there is he got started, and once he got started, he put on a show, and we had a hard time taking that from him, even in times when I thought we contested his shot very well on a couple of them. But the problem is, it's like any great shooter. Once they get started, they can make tough shots.
It was a wild game from the standpoint of, the first 10 minutes of the game, Findlay controlled it. And we're up 13 points. So Williams gets his second foul. He goes to the bench, and then all of a sudden, Lake goes on a tremendous run in the first half, actually takes an 8-point lead in at halftime.
They play fast. They came into the game averaging 94 a game. Hard to believe we kept them 4 under their average. And I wanted to keep them a lot more than 4 under their average. But I told our players this. I'm not going to get caught up in how many points they score. Because the reality is, any team that plays that fast, you're not going to hold them to 50 points. Because there's going to be a whole lot more possessions in this game. Okay? And really your defensive efficiency becomes the most important stat, is how many stops per possessions do you get. Because, like I said, we'll play some teams this year, and there'll be 60 possessions by them. You play Lake State, there's going to be 90, so they're going to score more. But I think, one of the things that you also face when you face a team like Lake State is unbelievable runs both directions. They played Indianapolis this year, and they had Indianapolis down, I think, 30-some in the second half, early in the second half. And Indy went on a 26-2 run and cut it to like 5 with 2 minutes to play in the game. And that's the negative for them playing that way but they're capable of a 21-point swing in the first half, but they're also capable of a 21-point swing the other direction. Unfortunately for us, the 21-point swing happened against us. And that's the part that's really the most concerning thing for me in that game, is that the first half ended a 21-point swing. I really believe the last minute of the first half and the first minute of the second half was the difference in the game. We got outscored by 11 points in a 2-minute stretch. And we lost momentum, but it was still a 2-point game or a tie game with 59 seconds to play in the first half, and then we're down 8 at halftime. And then they score the first 6 points, I think, of the second half, within a minute. That's the part that we need to look at, and that's the thing. The very thing I told the team in the locker room right after the game is I had every minute I put up on the clock, and I circled those 4 minutes, last 2 minutes of the first half, first 2 of the second half, and I said, the first 36 minutes, the other 36 minutes of the game, we outplayed them probably by 8 to 10 points. But in this 4-minute stretch, they outscored us by like 16. And you always want to end a half well, and you want to start the second half well. People talk about all the time. It's probably an overused coaching cliche in football and basketball. First 2 minutes of the second half, and we did not handle either of those segments of the game very well, and consequently we take on a 5-point loss.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that happened that way because you're right. At the end of the game, you guys come all the way back, down 18. You get it down to, I believe it was 4, a couple different occasions, and had multiple opportunities really to cut in that lead and maybe even tie the game up with under a minute. It just didn't work out, but it goes back to that deficit that you had to start with.
Yeah, and we could come up with a zillion excuses, but bottom line is we struggled to score in that stretch, and it's something we have to mature and get by, and that is we had defended reasonably well in terms of communication up to that point, the last 2 minutes of the first half. And we had a few guys that were frustrated. They had some shots not go down. We come down on defense and did a poor job of executing our switches. And that's what cost us those points. So I really think it was a hangover effect, a carryover effect, however you want to call it. And the thing in basketball is the same guys that play offense play defense, obviously. So obviously in football, if you're a frustrated offensive player, you're off the field for defense. That's someone else's job who's maybe not frustrated, But in basketball, your frustrations on offense, you can't allow those to carry over to the defensive end. Because if we get stops, fans have short memories. Coaches have short memories. Sometimes they're less concerned about the bad things you do as they are what you do after that bad thing happens. And we did not handle that situation very well. They score 6 points in the last 30 seconds of the first half. And actually I say both of them because one was a bucket, a 3, and the other one was 3 free throws. But the 3 free throws were because we miscommunicated a switch on the other side of the floor, and when the ball got all the way reversed, we put Katwan Singleton in an impossible closeout on a really good shooter. And that's why that happened. And they were running out of time. It's just unfortunate. And hopefully it's something we'll get better at, and guys will understand how important every second of the game is.
Well, in the end, it's a 90-85 loss. We're up against a break. When we come back, we'll talk about our upcoming road trip to the UP. You're listening to Center Court on 88.3 WLC.
Only 0.5% of all high school student athletes play basketball in college, but all 100% of them become adults. That's why playing basketball in their high school team is so important. High school athletes learn life lessons that help them grow up, lessons that can't be taught in the classroom and often aren't taught at home. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Check out my new time machine.
Does it work?
Hit the button.
Hey, it's Napoleon.
Oui. Check out the future.
Hey, you have a nice house. Why don't I?
You didn't save any money, buddy.
If only there was a way I could go back in time and fix that.
Yeah.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Hey, Nick Cannon here. So we all know we've got a lot of talent in America. But unfortunately, there's something else we've got way too much of. Childhood hunger. 17 million kids struggle with it in this country. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks gather surplus food to give hope to hungry kids and their families. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Center Court. My name's Jason Granger. And Coach, just wrapping up this last weekend with Lake Superior State and Northwood, and we talked about it briefly with Austin going down. You have to go ahead and move Ricardo over. Now Ricardo has played the point before, and I thought Ricardo did an outstanding job this weekend. And in Lake State, he had 10 points, 8 rebounds. He's a different type of point guard. You also have moved Trey Smith off his red shirt. I thought Trey did well for not playing for quite some time, it seems like. And, losing Austin is going to be difficult. He's a great guy, great leader, great player, but certainly you have to be somewhat pleased with how the first, couple games went.
Well, yeah, I would say that one of the silver lining type things that came from both games is that, there's going to be some ups and downs, but we did not lose those games necessarily by not having Austin. Would it have helped? Of course. I mean, he's one of the premier point guards in the country when it comes to assist to turnover ratio. But I thought, given his talent, given how good he is, I thought the guys that came in and played that position did a pretty darn good job considering the circumstances. Because again, like I said earlier in this show, we did not know we weren't going to have him until Wednesday afternoon. And then we didn't know until Friday morning that we lost him for the year. So, that's kind of, here you're balancing getting ready for the game and what these teams present and what we want to do to attack them with. Okay, now on top of that, we're going to be playing Ricardo, who has, he played there a fair amount as a sophomore, but it was with a different team, and we had a different style of play. And then, we started working him in right at the Ferris State game just because of the size of their point guards. And then, so now not only do we ask him to start and manage the game, but then, of course, on Saturday, we need you to do this against the best point guard in the league. And then I thought Trey, let's be accurate here about what you got here with Trey Smith. Yes, is he a sophomore? He is. But this was really his first test. It's like putting a true freshman out there in some ways. And really, he did what Trey does. And I was proud of what he did. He didn't look like a player that was scared of the moment, intimidated about the moment, the atmosphere, what was going on. To be honest, if he hadn't have gotten a couple fouls early, he'd have probably played more. And we're going to I think the biggest thing with Trey is we got to figure out how to take advantage of him because he's a weapon. And he's a weapon on defense. And he's a good offensive player. So I think that's one of the exciting things came out of the game is that I think we'll be able to manage just fine without Austin because we don't really have a choice. We may have to adjust a little bit, maybe change some things that better suit the strengths of those guys because that would be foolish to ask them to do the very same thing Austin did. They bring different strengths to the table. They're not going to pass the ball and take care of the ball quite as good as he did. But then again, there's 350 other point guards in the country that couldn't do it the way he did it. So, we got to be realistic in our expectations of them as well.
Still, both of them, both the Smiths, Ricardo and Trey, did a nice job taking care of the ball. Just 2 turnovers between them, and I think that's a positive. You look at going up against Williams, outstanding defensively as well. But I think, I was worried about our defensive presence at the point with losing Austin because he's a tremendous defender, very smart defender. You don't get in bad situations with Austin out there. And I think maybe the cautiously optimistic, I think we know Ricardo's a good defender. He's a different type of defender. But I don't think anybody knew what Trey Smith was going to bring. And Trey kind of reminds me of some point guards that we had in the past, that he has the ability to really get up in you and be a great on-ball defender.
Well, we have some interesting matchups on the horizon at that position, and so we're gonna find out in a hurry, just how good Trey is on defense. I know this; he is a disruptor, and he's a guy that can make athletic plays out of nowhere, where you don't even see him coming. He's got big heart. And I think he loves that end of the floor. He takes pride in what he can do on that end of the floor. So I think the next step for him will be, A, to do it in games, game in and game out. And then B, picking his spots on when to be aggressive, and I gotta give him some freedom there. I gotta give him some freedom. You don't want to handcuff guys too much because then you lose all their aggressiveness. So we got to figure out. That's my challenge with him. He's a weapon out there, no doubt in my mind. I told him I've been watching you for a year and a half. You're ready for the moment, and so I think it's going to be exciting to see his game develop this year. And the guy we're forgetting and he didn't play very well on Saturday, and he knows that. But he's not a guy that's totally out of the mix, and that's Nick. Because there's going to be games this year where we're going to need a third point guard, and there's going to be games where he's going to play a fair amount, and he's got to continue to be ready because he's got way too much experience to spend the entire rest of the year just sitting on the bench being a spectator. So we need him to continue getting better too.
Well, we've turned the page and now head up to the UP, and we've made this trip a number of times, and a little different this year. Thursday night we'll be at Northern Michigan, and this is a team that you look at this team. There's 3 and 5, but very athletic, and they have some players I haven't heard from before, and some new guys. And the first one on the list is Naba Eccles, and I'm not sure if he's a point guard, a two guard. All I know is he averages almost 18 points per game. And, certainly when you think of Bill Saul teams, coach teams, they're always athletic. They usually play a little up-tempo, and they'll have a swagger.
Yeah, well, he actually played a year ago against Naba Eccles. Didn't have a great game. I think, believe it or not, now, a couple years ago they had some kids from the Bahamas at Northern Michigan. And I kind of chuckled about that because I thought, okay, now that had to be some serious shock to their system when they got to the UP and saw 2 foot of snow. And Naba Eccles, if I'm not mistaken, from a year ago, I think he's from like Georgia, someplace down south, and that made me chuckle as well because I'm thinking, he's from the Peach State, so there's no peaches up in the UP that I know of, but he's ultra quick. He's quick like Williams is, fast. Doesn't shoot it as well, but obviously he's an improved shooter. But that was the thing he struggled with a year ago. We played him mostly as a driver, and that made him a little easier to guard. I think he's shooting the ball a little better this year. He's looking to be more aggressive with the ball. And he was a true freshman last year, so all that experience is probably paying off for him. So, so that here we go. Illustration number 1. With playing an aggressive, athletic point guard, and this will be a challenge for our point guards to keep him in front.
Lake State was a guard-oriented team. It appears that Northern is also a guard-oriented team. They do have some size and some athletes, but they're a team that I think, especially at home, is very good because you get up there, you're on the road all day long, you sit in the hotel, and then all of a sudden you got all these guys running at you. It makes them difficult.
Yeah, and it's kind of a cavernous place. They play in where their hockey games are played, and so it's just different, and our players need to adjust. You need to adjust when you're on the road. This is finals week for our guys, so Monday and Tuesday are awfully busy days, and so hopefully by Thursday most of the final exams will be out of the way, and the players can just focus on what we need to do as a team to go up to the UP and have some success.
This was a battle last year, a game that we had a lead here in Croy. They battled all the way back. The thing I remember about that was their size and how they rebounded the basketball. I think we were always concerned about their guard play, but they have some guys inside that can really get it done, especially on the boards.
Well, yeah, one of the things that jumped out at me, this was probably Alex White's maybe his best game of the year last year against Northern Michigan, and it was kind of his coming out party, to be honest. John struggled a little bit because of the sheer size of their players. They had a couple 6'7", 6'8", 250-pounders inside, and they did a good job of guarding John, and he had a very difficult time guarding them. So we had to go to Alex. And Alex played extremely well, and really we were fortunate to beat them a year ago on our home court. And, so those UP teams always have some horses inside, and this team's no different.
And play them on Thursday night, Northern Michigan Wildcats, and then have to go over to play Michigan Tech. And, we mentioned this off the air, Coach. when I looked at the record initially this morning, 4-5, I was shocked, but not really knowing that Kyle Monroe was injured. Who we talked a lot about, Kim J. Williams. Seems like every week we're playing a guy that might be the best player in the league, and certainly they have a guy like that.
Well, they have 2 sophomores and a freshman that are probably as good a combination of young players in this league as anyone. So, the fact that this might be the last time we play Michigan Tech for a couple years, at least in regular season play, probably isn't something I'm going to worry too much about because of that youth. Kyle Monroe hurt his ankle, high ankle sprain, tough ankle sprain, 2 minutes into their first game. I know more about this because actually Kevin Luke called me after their 4th game and we had some things to talk about from a conference administrative standpoint, and he's the one that told me that they were playing without him and how much it was hurting their team. They lost some close games. He felt like they could have been 3-0 or 4-0 in those games. Instead, they come out of those non-conference games because they were some heavyweights, and he purposely scheduled them knowing his team was going to be better, but then he had to end up playing all those games without his best player. But he's back now. He's healthy now. He had 30 against Ohio Dominican on Saturday. Clearly he's healthy. So they've got some good young talent, and they are scoring more points this year than they have in the last couple of years.
Well, this is a team that's going to shoot the three. Kyle Monroe averages 18 points, shoots 6 threes a game. Tommy Luke is a freshman, and he's averaging almost 18. He shoots 5 threes a game. And then Brian Heath, that other sophomore you talked about, he's shooting 7, and they shoot at a high percentage. All those guys over 40%. Imagine we're going to be chucking and ducking in up in Houghton.
Well, it's kind of the way the game of basketball is going a little bit. Maybe just the opposite of Division I. People sometimes watch Division I basketball and they question, the level of shooters, and they talk about all these guys are athletic and they lift weights and stuff. But the reality in Division II is that there's a lot of really good shooters at this level. Maybe they don't have the size or the athleticism, which is why they're not at the Division I level. But they could shoot. And, Michigan Tech, who would have thunk when we first joined this league that Michigan Tech would be a team that's chucking as many threes as they are? Because when you thought of Michigan Tech, you thought of a team that had horses inside, and you had to defend that first. And they have some guys inside, but they mostly do it with perimeter play. And so that'll be a real challenge for us to defend these guys. It always is. They run straight motion, so there's not a lot of sets you necessarily defend. You have to defend as a team. You have to defend tendencies, and we have to have great team defense.
Michigan Tech shooting roughly 40% from downtown, 27 threes per game, and maybe the X factor, Jordan Chartier, who was hurt last season, he's back. He averages 13, and he's a senior. Well, Coach, that's going to take up our time here. We got to travel up to the UP. I think we're leaving on Wednesday morning. It'll be a tough trip, but good luck.
All right, thank you.
That's head coach Charlie Ernst. I want to remind you to follow us on Twitter at Oilers On Air. We'll have all the action up at Northern Michigan on Thursday. Tune in to 88.3 for all the action. It's going for the coach Charlie Ernst. My name's Jason Granger. You've been listening to Center Court on 88.3 WLFC.
Martise can come around the screen, get in the lane, step back, jumper on the way. Got it. Offensive rebound, Alex White. Putback is good.
Thank you for listening to Center Court with Charlie Ernst.
Martise needs to pick it up, sends it ahead to Ricardo. Ricardo to Terrence Sullivan, who slams it down with one hand.
Tune in every Tuesday night during the season for your connection to Coach Ernst and Oiler men's basketball.
Back over to Alex White. Alex, kick out to Elijah. Nick will launch it from downtown. Nick Rusatz buries it from 3.
This is your home for Oiler men's basketball. 88.3 WLFC.